Deadwood, Dakota Territory, summer of 1876. The town reeked of sweat, gun oil, and cheap whiskey. Dust hung in the air like a curse, choking the throats of miners, gamblers, and drifters who packed the crooked streets. On the rickety steps of a saloon called the Brass Mule, a deal was about to be struck. Not for land, or cattle, or gold. This was the selling of a woman. Abigail Turner, A.B. as she was called, stood stiff and still between her father and brother. She was 23, which her father said was already too old for any man to bother marrying. Her skin was browned by sun, her hands rough with calluses, her figure too lean from hard work. To him she looked like a farmhand, not a bride. But her eyes, they were steady, defiant, daring anyone to tell her she was nothing. Elias Turner, her father, spat into the dirt and wiped his mouth. She's no use to us. Can't land a husband, can't bring in a dowry, can't give me a grandson. One less mouth is a blessing, her older brother Clive smirked. You'll get a good worker, long as you don't mind a sharp tongue. She's too proud for her own good. Across from them stood Horace Greevy, the saloon keeper, his red face slick with sweat and whiskey. He barked out a laugh, slapped his round belly, and pulled a pouch of coins from his coat. The bag clinked heavy in his hand. Don't mind a bit. I'll teach her what pride's worth. Here, more than she's worth. But I'm generous today. He turned his greasy smile toward Abby. Get in the wagon, girl. A rough hand seized her arm. She did not scream. She did not cry. She only looked at her father. In his eyes she saw no regret, no hesitation. Only relief. The crowd jeered and hooted. Miners, drunks, cowhands, looking for a bit of cruel fun. Lucky you, Horace. Bet she'll clean up nice. Useless women belong in saloons or graves. Abby's jaw clenched, her chest a storm of fury and shame. Yet she stood tall, refusing to let them see her break. Then, a shadow stirred by the general store. A man stepped forward, moving slow but sure, like a mountain that had decided to walk. His buckskin clothes were worn, a hunting knife rode his hip, a satchel of hide slung heavy on his shoulder. His beard was thick, his eyes hidden beneath the brim of a weather-stained hat. He said nothing at first, only walked through the crowd until he stood before Horace Greevy. The saloon keeper sneered, "What do you want, Boon?" Quote, The man set his satchel on the table. It fell with a solid thud. Furs, leather, the labor of a hard winter's hunt. Finally his voice came, low and steady. If she's useless to you, then I'll take her. Not for drink serving, not for bearing sons. I'll build her a roof. If she wants, she can call it home. The crowd hushed. Even Horace blinked. Elias Turner sputtered like he'd swallowed glass. You can't just... Horace began. I just did, Wayne Boon said. He turned his gaze to Abby. His eyes, though shadowed, were not cruel, not hungry. They held something strange, something she had never seen in a man's eyes before. Permission. His voice dropped low, just for her. You can walk if you want, but if you'd rather leave with me, I'll see to it. You're never treated like property again. Abby's breath caught. Her heart thundered in her chest. For the first time that day, she felt a crack of air in the suffocating weight. Slowly she nodded. Wayne turned, and Abby followed him away from the wagon, away from the crowd, away from the family who had sold her for coins. No one stopped them. Not her father. Not her brother. Not Horace Greevy. Deadwood watched in silence, unsure if they had just witnessed a rescue or a rebellion. The trail leading out of town wound like a snake into the Black Hills. Wayne walked steady, boots crunching gravel. Behind him, Abby sat astride a stubborn pack mule, gripping the worn saddle with unsure hands. She waited for the change, the harsh word, the grab, the demand. But Wayne said nothing. Hours passed. The sound of town faded. Birdsong replaced the clamor of hammers and shouting. The trees grew thick around them. For the first time in years, Abby was far from her father's shadow, far from the jeering eyes of men who measured her worth in coins. Fear and relief twisted inside her like tangled roots. At midday, Wayne stopped by a stream. He knelt, dipped a tin cup, and offered it to her. "Drink," he said simply. She hesitated. He didn't press. She sipped. The water was cold and sharp, cutting through the dust in her throat. He only drank after she finished. When night fell, they reached a small clearing. A rough frame of logs stood half-finished, its roof a patchwork of canvas and branches. A fire pit, blackened from old flames, lay at the center. This was no grand house. It was a promise. Wayne looked at her, his face lit by the dying light. "This ain't comfort. Not safety, not yet. But there's room here for a cabin, a real one. You can stay tonight, and tomorrow we start building. Or at first light, I'll take you back." Abi's voice cracked. "Why would you give me that choice?" "Because it's yours," he said. No man had ever spoken to her that way. Not her father, not her brother, not a soul in Deadwood. She sat in silence by the fire, wrapped in Wayne's old coat, too big for her shoulders. He served her beans and jerky before taking his share. And when the stars wheeled above them, Wayne carried his bedroll to the lean-to outside. "You can sleep inside." He said canvas leaks some, but it'll hold. "You're not." She stopped herself. Wayne gave a short nod. "I'll be out here." And so, for the first time in her life, Abigail Turner lay down in the dark and drifted to sleep without fear. But peace in the Black Hills was fragile, and Deadwood had long memories. Somewhere in the distance, trouble was already on its way. The days grew longer as summer stretched over the mountains. Abi woke each morning to the smell of pine and the call of wild birds. Her hands, once thought too soft and useless, began to harden with work. She split wood, hauled stones, mixed mud, and learned to steady a mallet without fear. Beside her, Wayne Boon worked with quiet precision, showing her with simple gestures how to brace beams, how to fit logs tight, how to seal cracks against the wind. Wayne was a man of few words, but his silence was never cruel. He didn't command, he didn't mock, he simply worked, and in his stillness, Abi found space she had never known. At night, they sat near the fire. He always served her first, then himself. And when the stars filled the sky, he carried his bedroll outside, leaving her the safety of the cabin's shelter. One evening, as flames flickered low, Abi finally asked, "Were you always up here in the mountains?" Wayne shook his head. "Number. I was a carpenter. Built barns, porches, coffins. Had a little house near the river." "What happened?" she asked. He stared into the fire, jaw tight. "Took a wife. Her name was Laya. She had a sweet voice. Loved birds. Lost her and the boy to cholera. After that, I didn't see much reason to hear myself talk anymore." Abi sat quietly, the crackle of fire filling the space between them. Then her own voice came, softer, uncertain. "My father said I was born wrong. Not pretty enough, not loud enough, not fertile enough. He burned the scraps of Bible pages my mother used to give me. Said no man wanted a wife who could outread him." Wayne stirred the coals with a stick but did not interrupt. "I only know a handful of words now," she admitted. Wayne finally looked at her. "Then we'll fix that." She blinked, not sure she had heard right, but he was already rising, pulling a flat board from his tools. With a stick of charcoal, he wrote her name, Abi. Slowly, carefully, he showed her each letter. Her fingers trembled as she copied them, her writing uneven, but hers all the same. She stared at the marks for a long time, clutching the board to her chest like it was a treasure. It was the first thing she had ever truly owned with her name upon it. By the third week, the cabin stood with strong walls and a roof that kept the rain at bay. Abi planted wildflowers near the steps, her hands digging into the earth with something that felt almost like joy. For once, she wasn't a burden. She was building something that might last. But joy does not last long in the West. One afternoon, the sound of hooves broke through the mountain stillness. Abi froze. Two riders appeared at the ridge, and her stomach sank. It was her father, Elias, and her brother, Clive. Their faces were twisted with scorn, their eyes sharp with ownership. Elias dismounted, his voice dripping with disdain. "Well, look at this dump. I knew she'd crawl herself into dirt, but didn't expect her to crawl up a mountain to do it." Wayne stepped down from the porch, axe in hand, blade resting low but ready. "You're not welcome here." "She's my daughter," Elias barked. "You think you get to say what's what?" "She's not your property," Wayne answered, his voice steady. Clive swung off his horse, spit in the dirt, and sneered. "She's a debt, a mouth we fed too long, and now a rich miner in Helena's offering 10 head of cattle for a wife. We've come to collect." Wayne didn't flinch. "If she wants to go with you, she can." "I won't stop her," Elias smirked. "You think she's your wife now? You think you get to play house with her?" Wayne's eyes didn't waver. "I think she's a person. That's more than you ever treated her as." Inside the cabin, Abby's legs trembled, her heart hammering. She could stay hidden. She could let Wayne stand for her, but deep down she knew this moment was hers. The door creaked open. Abby stepped outside, her chin lifted, her hands stained with dirt from the flowers she had planted. She looked at her father, then her brother. "I'm not going with you," she said. Elias blinked, stunned. "Excuse me." "I said no." Her voice carried clear across the clearing. "I'm not for sale." "Not anymore." Clive moved forward, but Wayne shifted, the axe in his grip steady. "You heard her. She made her choice." Elias's face twisted with rage. "Ungrateful girl! After all we did for you." "You sold me," Abby cut in. Her voice cracked but did not falter. "You didn't raise me. You tolerated me until you could profit." The words hung in the mountain air. From the trees, a few trappers and valley folk had gathered, watching. Elias noticed them. His bravado cracked. "You'll regret this, girl," he spat. "Maybe." Abby answered, her back straight, her eyes unflinching. "But it'll be my regret." There was a long pause. Then Elias cursed, mounted his horse, and turned away. Clive glared once more at Wayne before following. Their figures shrank into the trees, leaving only silence. Abby exhaled, knees weak, but she stayed upright. She had chosen. For the first time in her life, no one could take that from her. The fire crackled as Wayne set his axe back on the porch. He did not speak. He didn't need to. The mountain had heard her words, and so had he. The mountain turned white early that year. Snow clung to the pines, and the stream froze in places where Abby used to kneel for water. Wayne hunted each morning, his rifle slung over his shoulder, but winter in the Black Hills was cruel, and game grew scarce. One evening, long after the sun had slipped away, Abby heard the panicked bray of their mule. She rushed outside and saw Wayne stumbling up the trail, blood soaking his shirt. His face was pale, jaw clenched. "Wayne," she cried, dragging him inside. "It's not deep," he grunted. "Elk caught me with an antler, just a graze." But the blood told another story. Abby pressed rags to the wound, her hands shaking, her breath quick and uneven. For days, Wayne could hardly move. He leaned on a carved stick just to make it from the bed to the fire. Abby became the strength of the cabin. She split wood until blisters tore her palms. She hauled water from the stream, mended clothes, kept the fire alive. She cleaned his wound and sat by him at night, reading from the handful of words Wayne had taught her. The villagers whispered that she would die up there with him. But Abby did not leave. One night, as wind howled outside, she stitched a bandage with trembling fingers. Wayne studied her face, pale with exhaustion but unbroken. "You're stronger than this whole mountain," he murmured. She blinked, tears welling. "Why?" "I've seen storms split trees in half." "But not you." Her head dropped, shoulders shaking with quiet sobs. For the first time in her life, someone had called her strong. Wayne reached out, his hand closing gently over hers. The fire burned steady between them, warming more than just the room. By spring, Wayne could walk again. The snow melted, streams ran full, and green buds spread across the hills. The cabin stood solid, flowers blooming near the steps Abby had planted the summer before. One afternoon, 3 riders came. prospectors from the south. Their leader, Lyle, tipped his hat and offered Abby a folded paper. "We've got a claim down in town. Need someone who can read receipts and keep ledgers. Pays fair, roof over your head. You'd be the first woman hired for brains, not just bed-warming." Abby's chest tightened. A real job. A chance to stand on her own, free from debt, free from dependence. That night she sat by the fire, staring at the offer. Wayne carved cedar in silence. At last he set down the wood and placed something beside her. A small hand-carved map. "If you want to go," he said, "this will take you down." "Easiest trail after snowmelt," Abby stared. "And if I don't want to go, keep it anyway. So you'll always know the way back." "Wayne, aren't you going to stop me?" "Say something." His eyes softened. "You're not mine to keep." That's the point. 2 mornings later, Abby stood at the trail as the wagon rattled closer. Lyle waved. "You ready, miss?" She clutched the carved map in one hand, the offer in the other. Her heart thundered. Then she shook her head. No, Lyle frowned. "You sure?" "I already live where I want to be," she said firmly. She turned back, walked up the slope, and found Wayne waiting on the porch. She pressed the map into his palm and smiled. "Turns out, I don't need it. I'm already home." Wayne didn't smile back. He only nodded, but his eyes said more than words ever could. That spring, the cabin became more than shelter. Abby laid chalk and slate on a long wooden table Wayne had built, and children from the valley came, carrying eggs and corn as payment for lessons. Mothers lingered at the door, listening as their little ones spelled their names for the first time. Abby's voice filled the cabin, teaching letters once denied to her. And when she looked up, she often found Wayne watching from the porch, carving stools for the children, his quiet pride shining through the lines of his weathered face. On a Sunday morning, beneath the tallest pine, the valley folk gathered. Abby wore a white dress stitched from flour sacks, wildflowers braided into her hair. Wayne stood beside her in a clean shirt, beard trimmed neat. The children scattered petals at her feet, and a broken fiddle played a thin but sweet tune. Abby took his hands, her voice steady. "I used to believe I was nothing, that my worth came only from what others could take from me. But this man built me more than a cabin. He gave me a place to stand, a name to carry, a life of my own choosing." Wayne's voice cracked as he answered, "I've built many things in my life. Barns, coffins, porches. But nothing was ever finished until her. Today I call her my wife, not because she's mine, but because she made this place a home." Quote. The crowd cheered, children clapped, and when Wayne slipped the hand-carved wooden ring onto Abby's finger, the forest itself seemed to still in reverence. That night, the cabin glowed with firelight. Children whispered the alphabet at the long table. Chickens clucked softly under the porch. Abby wrote lesson plans by candlelight, while Wayne carved shelves for their growing home. Outside, the stars burned over the black hills. Inside, Abby smiled through tears. After a lifetime of being called useless, she was finally something more: wife, teacher, builder, and free.